Okay, so Pluto is this tiny, distant planet or dwarf planet, whatever, that people used to think was a regular planet. Now, some big-shot scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku are saying it could crash into Neptune. Sounds crazy, right? Basically, they're worried that Pluto's weird orbit might send it on a collision course with Neptune. But how could that even happen? What would it mean if those two planets actually smashed into each other? Is this just some random space weirdness? Or is something else going on? Pluto's orbit is really strange. It takes almost 250 years for it to go around the Sun just once. And get this, its orbit isn't even a circle. It's more like an oval. Plus, it's tilted way more than the other planets. One of the craziest things is that Pluto's orbit actually crosses Neptune's. For about 20 years of its trip, Pluto is closer to the Sun than Neptune is. So why haven't they hit each other yet? Well, other planets' gravity keeps them apart. When Pluto was first found, scientists started trying to figure out its odd path. It's way different from the other planets. The fact that it crosses Neptune's path made things even more puzzling. But somehow, Pluto stays in its lane. It's all thanks to something called the three-body problem. Basically, it's how Pluto, Neptune, and the Sun all pull on each other with gravity. The key is something called non-resonant libration. When Pluto crosses Neptune's orbit, it's always far away from Neptune itself. They never get too close. Another thing is orbital precession. Pluto moves up and down in its orbit, so when it's closest to Neptune, it's also way above Neptune's path. There's also something called VZK wobbling. It sounds funny, but it's how the gravity of those three bodies affects each other and keeps Pluto's orbit stable. Even though Pluto's orbit looks wild, this wobbling keeps it from going haywire. Keeps Pluto from crashing into Neptune or flying off into space. Back in the 80s, some computer simulations showed that Pluto's orbit is actually pretty unpredictable. Small changes could make a big difference over time. But these weird quirks actually keep Pluto stable over really, really long periods. Giant planets like Jupiter and Saturn also help keep Pluto in check. Neptune and Pluto have a special relationship where Neptune orbits the Sun 3 times for every 2 orbits of Pluto. Jupiter's gravity helps too. So, all these planets are working together to keep Pluto from causing trouble. Without all these things, our solar system would be way more chaotic. Planets could crash into each other or get thrown out of their orbits. So, understanding Pluto's orbit is super important, especially with all the talk about it maybe hitting Neptune someday. Pluto's story shows that even things that seem unstable can find balance with a little help from gravity and good old orbital mechanics. It also reminds us to keep looking and learning about space. Space is weird, and Pluto's orbit proves it. Orbital chaos means that even tiny changes to a planet's position can mess up its orbit in the long run. Computer simulations have helped scientists figure out how Pluto moves. By changing tiny details in the simulation, they can see how much those changes affect Pluto's path. Those simulations from the 80s showed that even with all the things keeping it stable, Pluto's orbit can still be pretty wild. But even with this chaos, Pluto's orbit stays stable for billions of years. The fact is, it's hard to predict where planets will be, especially planets with weird orbits like Pluto. Even with computer models, there's always a chance of being wrong. Besides all the space craziness, Pluto reminds us that the universe is always changing. We've learned a lot about space, but Pluto shows us that there's still tons to learn. Understanding how the big planets affect Pluto's orbit lets us understand how the whole solar system works. It shows that where planets are located can change the stability of everything else. So, why are scientists suddenly talking about Pluto hitting Neptune? Neil deGrasse Tyson is concerned about Pluto's future. He sees the possibility of a crash. Even though Tyson is worried, there's no solid evidence that Pluto will actually hit Neptune. But it reminds us that we need to keep studying how planets move. Our knowledge of the solar system is always getting better. The important thing is to keep learning about how these planets interact. So, the bottom line is that Pluto's orbit is a mystery. However, its stability shows the beauty of the universe. Someday, we might know if Pluto and Neptune will collide. The idea of a collision makes us wonder about the future of everything in space. It also shows how our understanding of space is always changing. It reminds us that the universe is both predictable and unpredictable. Pluto is a reminder of how far we've come in understanding the universe. Our ideas about what makes a planet have changed. However, it has captured our imagination. As we learn more about space, we see how gravity is in charge of planets, moons, and asteroids. Whether Pluto collides with Neptune is still an open question. However, hopefully technology will help solve this mystery. New space discoveries can help us understand the past and future of the solar system. Maybe there will even be a collision between Pluto and Neptune, but in the meantime, we can appreciate the wonders of space. We still have much more to learn. Space is a never-ending,